Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with Big Sarge. I'm your host, Big Sarge. I gotta kind of be quiet, y'all, because I'm in somebody else's studio and they don't know how we do it because I'm in Louisiana right now. And, you know, if I was in Texas, you know, we do everything big in Texas, like everything. So that's why I'm so loud, but I'm in somebody else's studio, you know, and so I gotta be you know,
don't be putting your feet up on my coffee table.
Hey, listen, that voice you hear right there is none other than Mr. David Grubb from Hard in the Paint. What time does your show come on?
8 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, Sports 1280.
And where can they find you at?
On the iHeartRadio app.
Yep.
And that's my podcast is there too. And you can go to my website, hitpwithdg.com.
And I got my country cousin up in here.
What's up, y'all?
Jones,
What's up?
From the Lunchbreak, KYOK.
It's the breakfast break right now.
You
know, this is early for me.
I guess it's brunch break.
11:40 a.m. Where can they find you at, AJ?
They can find me at KYOK Lunchbreak. Lunchbreak KYOK on Twitter. And they can just find me on Facebook at The Lunchbreak.
And you know, you can find me at Big Sarge Sports with a Z on Twitter and Instagram and BigSargeSports.com. Make sure you go check out my article about the matchups tonight between the key matchups for me between the New Orleans Saints and the Houston Texans. Now, AJ and I are here in the booth.
Yep.
We in New Orleans. Hopefully we can get some good food. I'm allergic to shellfish.
What you mean, hopefully?
I'm allergic to shellfish.
What you mean, hopefully?
He can't eat half the things that we specialize in.
Exactly. I'm allergic. Listen, it was crazy because I love crab legs, right?
Yes.
So before I went to Afghanistan, my late wife, rest in heaven, Jamila, made me crab legs. Bam. Went overseas. Didn't really eat any, seafood or anything because I ain't trusted. Come back. She made me crab legs as a welcome home. I'm sitting there like,
Throw swole up on you.
Maybe it's the seasoning. Keep your vinegar. So you know me, I'm like, let me try it again. Let's see. So
Lord.
She made them again, and I realized that. I went to the doctor. He's like, oh, you're allergic to shellfish. I was like, how did that happen? So now I can't eat a lot of the things that y'all specialize in. So
it's Monday. That means red beans and rice. That's every time on Monday. So you get you some good red beans and rice with a nice smoked sausage in there.
And dewy sausage.
And dewy, yeah.
I thought you were going to... No, I don't eat pork. I thought you was going to say...
you can do it without the sausage. You can get it out the sausage.
You can get a piece of chicken by a fried piece
and
of
you
fried
gotta
chicken.
do fried chicken, yeah.
But we're in New Orleans. I'm pretty... Do they
Go to
have
Neo's.
Do they have the chicken sandwiches down here at Popeyes?
They out, baby. They out. They said they won't be back till like...
They're here too?
Yeah,
in Houston,
we out. They got the signs at all of them.
That's why Houston can't get none.
They got a picture of crumbs. They literally have... You go to Popeyes, they have a picture of crumbs.
That's
and it
crazy.
says, download the app so you can find out when they come back. So there's a Popeyes tracker app for the sandwiches.
No way.
Yes, man.
They got guys pulling guns on people down in Houston.
They're doing it here too.
Really?
Man, the lines have were ridiculous. I didn't even get one because every time I was saying, I'm not standing in line for a sandwich.
You ain't miss out on nothing. I had one.
That's not. But here. There are people talking about it like it's a religious experience. I've had people come up to me and say, Dave, you have to have had the sandwich. And I said, it's just a sandwich.
Man.
It's a sandwich. It's chicken.
I felt Jesus in my meat.
But they are like coming out the woodwork and
That's
saying, this is
crazy.
the best thing I've ever had that's ever happened to my life. I've seen people weep over this. People jumping in through drive-through windows, people throwing stuff at employees over the sandwich, and it's just... I've never seen anything like that over fast food. That's
right?
Stuff you see at Christmas during Black Friday.
Yeah.
But I ain't never seen that over no chicken sandwich. And now to have a tracking app to find out when the stores have it. I'm just not waiting in line behind 50 people to get a sandwich, and they trying to get 3 and 4 at a time. I said Popeyes won't make money.
Yeah.
They need to do a box with like 4 sandwiches and some fries.
Yeah.
And you go park across from the dome every Sunday.
Oh man.
Oh, you make
And
money.
you make a killing. You make a killing. Just travel around the city with an ice cream truck, but it's a Popeye sandwich truck.
This may lose me future endorsements with Popeyes, but the sandwich wasn't all that to me. I had it two months before it blew up because they only put them out in selected markets,
Right.
which was really crazy, AJ, because David, where I live in Houston, I live in the land of the Anglo-Americans.
Yeah, you do.
And so I didn't know that the chicken sandwich, I pulled up one day, I was hungry, I don't know where I was going. I was like,
But that might be why your Popeye sandwich wasn't no good.
That lady on the commercial wasn't cooking your sandwich.
Hey, listen, do not offend my
Put a little
Anglo-Americans.
less. They put a little less season. It wasn't. Salt Bay up in
Yours
there.
was gluten-free.
Hey, listen, all my Anglo-American listeners, that was David, not Big Sarge. Big Sarge, I love you, and I'm going to eat the potato salad with the raisins in it. I mean, if it means I can get some endorsements, some sponsors or whatever. So, but
Mr. Quiche.
yeah, exactly. Hey, I'll eat kale, if that's what it's, quinoa, whatever it's called. So, AJ and I traveled from Houston to come down here to cover the Monday night game. The Houston Texans opened up against the New Orleans Saints here it's the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, right? That's what it's called, 6 p.m. First Monday night game, because it's a doubleheader tonight.
There's a late.
Yeah, the Raiders play tonight.
Yeah, Gruden and Mayock gonna be on TV again. Ain't that what it's basically? What this
the used car salesman and the outdated coach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wouldn't be surprised if once Gruden's brother gets fired from Washington, if he doesn't bring him on staff. That's exactly what's going to happen.
That's
he's going to get fired. He's going to get fired from Washington. We'll talk about that in a second. But so we're here for the game tonight, and so David, since I'm a guest in your house, I'm going to let you go first. What is your keys to victory for the New Orleans Saints?
I think on both sides of the ball, it starts up front. The Saints have to be able to run the football. The reason they got off to, they should have been on 0-2 last season to start the season. Mark Ingram was out, and Alvin Kamara had to be the lead back, and he couldn't run. The Saints have an offensive line. Ryan Ramczyk is a really good player. Teron Armstead is really good, but he gets hurt a lot.
Ramczyk made All-Pro last year.
Yep, but you got a rookie center in Eric McCoy, and that's always a difficult transition. We know how important center is in making those calls. The guard position, Larry Womack, very good guard. Pork chop, plays very well. But if they can't run the ball, if they can't establish a run, and Drew Brees is forced to throw 40 times, that's always been a bad indicator for the Saints. You don't want him throwing the ball 40 times. When they do that, they have a losing record. I think they're like a 38% winning team when he throws over 40 passes in a game. So the Saints have to control the clock that way. Defensively, if they can't generate pass rush, they're done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when that's the problem, and you can get that secondary having to cover a long time, then they're in trouble. The best part of that defense is the linebacking core. Demario Davis is as good a linebacker as there is in this league, sideline to sideline. So I think the Saints' linebacking core is their strength.
To go along with Cam Jordan.
To go with Cam Jordan on the D-line, who is one of the elite pass rushers in this league. But if they don't get anything from the other side, and you can double Cam all night, and they don't get any push, because remember, you're talking about Marcus Davenport is trying to figure himself out on the D-line.
Yeah.
Sheldon Rankin's coming off an injury.
Right.
And then you got suspensions that are costing you one of your interior linemen as well. So they can't rotate that group as deep. So it's going to be, if the Texans can run the football, if they can get themselves and get in some, even if you're not getting touchdowns, but you're getting 8-9 play possessions that result in whatever, but you're just keeping the Saints on the field. The lines are going to be the key right there. If the Saints have to win the battles at the line of scrimmage.
Sticking with that Alvin Kamara, that analysis. Do you see him? I don't see Alvin Kamara as an every down back, and that's why they brought in Latavius
Murray.
Yeah, so I don't see it. I don't think he's durable enough to be an every down back, and that's what I loved about them having a Mark Ingram, because Mark Ingram would take the punishment while Alvin Kamara would be the flashback. He'd be, hey, look, I'm gonna catch this out of the backfield. I can become another. I can hit the hole quick. But I'm really good once I get in space, and so they would run different type of plays. Sean Payton would run different type of plays to get him in space. But now, as the feature back, I don't see him running 32 dive. I don't see him running, 34 power right, something like that. So, do you think that that's going to be an issue for them going on?
Sean Payton has said that he wants to keep his touches around the same as they were last year, which I don't see how you can do that. I don't see how that's possible. If you're going to get the most out of him, and he should be, if things go right, either he or Christian McCaffrey this year are going to be the third back in league history to get 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving. It's either him or McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And if I don't see how you can limit his touches when he's...
Or Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon with the Jets, though.
He gonna get a lot of touches. I'm
He's
sorry.
gonna get a lot of touches, but I don't know.
Should.
But I don't know
They're
if
smart.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was thinking about
they'll
that.
get enough possessions offensively for him to get the yards that he wants, especially when you got Sam Darnold throwing you passes. I think that's, Cam Newton can get stuff to McCaffrey because Newton's a threat. Drew Brees can get stuff to Kamara because you don't want Brees going down the field.
I don't know we side note, but I don't think that Cam makes it throughout the season.
Physically, Cam's going to take a beat. You saw it at me yesterday. He took a beat. That line is still bad, but Cam is going to take a beating all year. But for Kamara, if he's still only at around 15, 16 touches a game, I just don't think that's enough. Latavius Murray's a good back.
Yeah.
But Mark Ingram had that locker room. When you watch Saints games last year, Mark Ingram was as much a part of the spirit of that team as anybody else. And emotionally, that's a big loss. Those two dudes were like this. Yeah. They were joined at the hip. And for him to be gone, I think there will be an adjustment.
Is money the real reason he's gone?
I think Mark Ingram's agent played his hand wrong.
Yeah.
Because he ended up taking less money to go to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't have to play his hand that way. I think, you know how it is with running backs in this league. You have to really try to find your value. And sometimes you got to say, is the situation better for me here or in someplace else? I don't think the situation in Baltimore is necessarily better for him, even if they win. I mean, the Saints are on the precipice of being, a Super Bowl team, and Ingram was a big part of that. And Ingram also, like we talked about on air on my show, when you come to pass blocking, Ingram leveled people.
Sure
yes.
Sure
he leveled people, and he ain't a big dude.
Right.
We've seen him stand up against his own, with his own alumni at the Heisman house or whatever, and he does not look like Derrick Henry.
Right.
Yeah.
But Mark Ingram would flatten a dude coming after Brees, and I think that that's an important thing too. Kamara's not going to be that guy. You don't want him back there flattening people. He's going to be in the flat as the fourth wide receiver a lot. And Murray's got to pick that up. And can Murray be a guy who gets 15 carries and gives you 70 yards?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case because he's never had to do that. So, I think they want to manage Kamara, but at the same time, how do you take one of your most effective weapons and say, I'm going to limit your pitch count?
That's true. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Once again, you're tuning into the Sports Talk with Big Sarge podcast. I'm here with Mr. David Grubb from Harden the Paint, 1280 a.m. out of New Orleans, and Mr. A.J. Jones, 1140 a.m. KYOK out of Houston. Now, A.J., if I ask David about the Saints, you know what I got to ask you about.
What you got to ask me about?
What are the keys to victory for the Houston Texans?
That offensive line, it starts and stops with that offensive line, especially with all the drama that went around them building it late in the preseason. It's got to be who they think it is. If it's not, if they cannot protect Deshaun Watson early and often, it's going to sink into at least one person's head. We're not as good as we thought we were. And you can't have linemen second-guessing themselves this early in the season, because either you have a team that's more prepared or a team that's underprepared. That offensive line does not need to come out looking like they're not ready yet. They got to come out looking like, we went through a lot of drama, but we're ready to play, and we're protecting Deshaun to give him time to be who he is.
Do you think that from a defensive standpoint that the New Orleans Saints will attack a rookie like Titus Howard playing the guard position for the very first time in the NFL?
Would you?
I would.
And that's what I think Sean Payton is smart enough to do that. One thing that makes Bill Belichick great is he attacks an area that you either know that he's going to attack and can't do anything about it, or you don't realize, doggone, we needed that, and he took that away from us. So if I'm Sean Payton, I test that door. I try to find out early and often if this kid is ready to go. Because if you can sink that seed of doubt into that offensive line, whether it be one of the rookies or one of the fringe players that is in that starting lineup, maybe it's not Laramie Tunsil. Maybe it's somebody else. And again, it takes those top-tier coaches to find that weak link and expose it.
Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we know that the Houston Texans traded Jadeveon Clowney over a week ago to the Seattle Seahawks, and they're going to be looking for ways to make up for his presence over there. Because, the one thing that I never like when it comes to, especially fans, fans short for fanatics, they get into this sack count. Well, you know what? Let me take that back. Let me digress. You had a lot of media personalities who do the same thing. It's like, let me look at the sack numbers.
Right.
No, because Jadeveon Clowney brought a presence to that defensive line like no other.
Yep.
we talked about Sean Payton exposing that. Does he also expose them from doing that? Does he also expose that defensive side of the ball?
Actually, I'm more of the, and I'm not Sean Payton, but I'm more of the, you know that you can always go to that side of the ball and expose somebody who's not Jadeveon Clowney. I think what you do is you expose J.J. Watt. You let J.J. Watt be as aggressive as he wants to be and run where J.J. Watt leaves. Or you throw the ball where J.J. Watt just left. It's got to be quick. It's got to be timing. But then when you do that, you put that secondary that's still a question mark on notice that we're doing this now, but guess what we're doing? We're coming to you next. And they're going to have to try to come up a little bit more because you're getting those second-level runs where J.J. Watt leaves an area or somewhere like that. And once they start coming up, the one guy who can kill them is Drew Brees, Michael Thomas.
Now, the play calling duties, Coach O'Brien has given those up to, I can't remember the position that Tim Kelly coached on last. Was it tight ends?
Tight ends.
He was a tight ends coach on last year. Now he is the offensive coordinator along with T.J. Yates, former quarterback for the Houston Texans. That's offensive assistant. Where I think that, let me say this. I don't think that Bill O'Brien is going to give up complete control of the offensive play calling. But what I do like what he did was brought in Carl Smith from Seattle, who used to coach, the quarterback's coach who used to coach Russell Wilson. I think that at this point, with Bill, I think Bill's job is on the line as well because Kyle McNair is not going to play when it comes to – he's tired of being ridiculed. He's tired of his family.
He should be.
He's tired of the Texans being a running joke.
He should be.
And so I think that Coach O'Brien is coaching for his job this year, and now he has to turn it over to those three other sets of eyes, three other minds. Deshaun Watson loves what Carl Smith brings to the table. Mm-hmm. But do you think that Coach O'Brien is going to totally back off? Let's say they start out, let's just say tonight they don't get any offense going in the first three drives. Mm-hmm. Does he step in and say, I'm going to take over?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bill O'Brien is not going to give that up. He's going to allow it to run a course. Mm-hmm. And when it doesn't go the way he wants it to go, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to call his own number.
Yeah.
He's going to either take it over or be
screen.
Very involved in it.
Wide receiver screen.
Yeah, run the ball first down, second down, try to, figure it out third and then make a bad call on fourth down. So, Bill O'Brien is who Bill O'Brien is. He's not changing. He might adjust, but he's not changing. Adjustments can be unadjusted, and I can see Bill. He did it before.
Yeah,
he did it before. So no, especially if he's playing or coaching for his job, Bill O'Brien's going to go down fighting.
David, you all gave the New Orleans Saints gave Michael Thomas a huge contract this past offseason, right? Put him up there with the elite when it comes to the money.
Yep.
Does he show up this year for that?
I think, Mike Thomas is very motivated. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need people on the outside to motivate him. He works incredibly hard. The issue for him is always going to be who's on the other side. And the Saints have not done a great job of putting people opposite him. And it's the same thing. You go back to Marcus Colston with the Saints. Mm-hmm. Marcus could get 100 catches, but he didn't put up big touchdown numbers. Mm-hmm. And the same with Michael Thomas. He hasn't had a 13, 14-yard touchdown. 14 touchdown season because they just don't get it. He doesn't get those opportunities. You look at compare him to DeAndre Hopkins in yards per catch. Mm-hmm. DeAndre gets more big plays out of the passing game than Mike gets because Drew doesn't have the arm that he used to have. And that's not an insult. That's just a concession to 40 years old. Mm-hmm. So Mike is forced into a lot of positions of getting himself open and making the catch. The yards after the catch aren't there like they should be for a guy with his talent. Mm-hmm. So I think Mike will always be able, like they say, can't guard Mike. That's his name.
Yeah.
He lives up to that. You cannot stop him from getting between the man and the ball. Mm-hmm. But until they get somebody who can take some of that pressure off, they're hoping Jared Cook does that this year at the tight end spot. But the camp fight at wide receiver all during training camp, nobody stepped up.
Yeah.
And as much as you say, well, Ted Ginn's a pro and he still got speed, Ted Ginn also gets hurt a lot, and Ted Ginn also has games where he gets the drops.
And he runs out of bounds a lot. I'm sorry.
You don't want to get. I mean, it's true, but
he runs out of bounds a lot.
So you're talking about if you don't have anybody opposite Mike, and then people can keep rolling coverage, he'll get catches. He'll get 115 balls, but he ain't gonna get touchdowns. And he won't get big yardage, and that's been the thing that separates him from the guys like Antonio Brown, like DeAndre Hopkins. Those guys get yards after the catch and turn, short catches and a touchdown. It's not on Mike Thomas that's not happening. It's just not available in this offense for him yet.
Well, like AJ mentioned about the secondary for the Texans, do you think tonight Michael Thomas exposes the secondary? Because where I feel like the Texans are weak at cornerback, and this is no knock on them, but Jonathan Joseph is long in the tooth. He is one step away from being a coach. But then you got Bradley Roby on the other side. And then you got Colvin that's going to come in. And then I forgot the other cornerback's name. It slips my mind right now. But I don't know if they have a cornerback equipped enough to stop a Michael Thomas.
Again, I'd go back to the Saints' run game. If the Saints can get play action, then I think Mike Thomas can have a very big night. Yeah. And I also think it's going to be on Jared Cook. If he can get behind the linebackers and get those 12 to 15-yard catches and maybe run after the catch or work that sideline and get one-on-one matchups for Mike, then it becomes a whole different story. Yeah. But if you turn the Saints one-dimensional,
that's my point,
and they can't run, and you get in pressure with just your front four, and the linebackers can stay a little further back, then those routes that Drew loves, because they ain't deep routes, those routes that he loved become harder to throw to. Those windows become a little bit tighter.
The Cowboys did to him last year.
Well, that's what Bill Belichick does. I mean, think about it. He hadn't, before Sony Michel came to life at the end of last year, he hadn't had a top-flight running back. He hadn't had great wide receivers, but he was never worried about J.J. Watt because he knew if they could run the ball decently enough, that was going to cause those cornerbacks to have to focus on supporting the run and trying to cover wide receivers. And Tom Brady's just too damn good for that. Yeah. So if the Saints can do that same kind of model, we'll let J.J. Watt be J.J. Watt, but we're going to run the ball enough where he's not, where these cornerbacks are having to adjust to the run. Now that play action pass has some meaning. Now that what's Drew Brees doing has some meaning, and he's not one dimensional. Right. And he can find a couple over the top.
If they're playing quick release, then they're going to have to dink and dunk their way down the field, and which can be effective for the Saints, sure. But they're not going to put up the points that they want to put up that way. And that's going to be the big thing. And who is lining up on Kamara when he does go out wide? Because then he can run routes as good as a receiver down the field, but if you throw him that swing or you throw him a quick screen, he can turn that. He can make guys miss and get down the field. So whoever's lined up over him, and whether it's a safety or a linebacker, I wouldn't put a linebacker over Kamara. But if you got a safety or another corner that you're putting on him, that guy better be able to stop him and tackle him once the catch is made. Because if he makes the first guy miss, he can make the second guy miss, and it's a big play. But if Drew Brees is only getting a couple seconds to get that ball out of his hands, that's a much better option for the Texans, because he's not able to get it downfield to Thomas. You don't get that chance to make that second move and get beyond the corners and attack the safeties. So I think that line and the Saints' ability to run, that's the game right there. Nothing happens if neither team, it all depends on who controls that line of scrimmage. Yeah.
Once again, you tune in to Sports Talk with Big Sarge podcast. I'm Big Sarge. I have the host of Hard in the Paint, Mr. David Grubb out of the 1280 AM New Orleans, and Mr. AJ Jones from the Lunchbreak 1140 AM KYOK out of Houston, Texas. You all just brought up secondary. We talked about the secondary of the Texans. I also think that the Saints have a secondary issue as well. Now, of course, you got Marcus Lattimore, who is, all world. I think that he's going to be one of those guys who at the end of the day, we'll be talking about him as one of the greats if he stays on the path that he's on. But wait, was it Lattimore who also missed the...
Yeah, he gave up the Minnesota Miracle.
Okay, I just, I'm glad he rebounded from that.
Yeah, he did.
That fueled him.
Yeah, that was just my petty side. But with him being able to shut down one side of the field, I feel like that the other side, though, with Eli Apple, I think that he is the weak link. And I don't, just like I said about with Jonathan Joseph and Roby. I think that Roby is going to be matched up on Michael Thomas, and that's going to be a good matchup. I mean, Roby has won a Super Bowl. He has the speed to be able to keep up with him. And now I don't know if he has the physicality, because a lot what people don't give Michael Thomas credit for is that he's very, very physical.
Yes.
He wants to put his hands on you. He wants to push you out of the way. He wants to catch the ball and then turn around, talk trash to you, and like, I just literally just beat you up, which reminds you of who?
Michael Irvin.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Yep. And so that's why. But on the flip side of that, right? You got the Saints secondary with Eli Apple. Who is he going to hold? You can't put him on DeAndre Hopkins because Hop will route him to death.
Right.
And once he routes him to death and makes him bite, he's going to go past him. Now DeAndre Hopkins doesn't have elite speed, but he has speed.
Yep.
So now you can't put him against DeAndre Hopkins because you got to have Lattimore over there. But Eli Apple also can't run with Will Fuller, who really only runs one route. He only runs the go route. And when you got Eli Apple, I put it like this: in this summer in training camp, they lined up number ones against number ones. And if you seen the way Will Fuller was running by his own defensive backs, I'm like, Eli Apple doesn't have a chance. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to talk too bad about Eli Apple because his mama's gangster. All right? I don't want no issues.
She might be listening.
Right? I don't want no issues
We
with
love
Annie.
Miss Apple.
Yeah.
We love Miss Apple.
I ain't trying to have no
You're
issues.
fine, girl. You're fine.
I ain't trying to have no issues. She called somebody out for trying to send her pictures of his private parts one time
that's
on
a
Twitter.
Another lot.
Yeah, she don't play no games. She is Asian too? Or she just
No, I don't think she's
just
Asian,
very-
but she involved.
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And so, and it doesn't matter whichever one of you all want to answer this. What does the secondary for the Saints have to do in order to slow down Deshaun Watson and his receiving core?
Well, I'll say from our end, Eli Apple, the biggest concern is that he has brain farts. I mean, there are just times when he's not on the field. His brain is somewhere else. And we saw it in the preseason. There were throws where he just was not aware of the ball. And that happens 2 to 3 times a game. And you hope that it's not on a play that's going to really matter. But that's what he does. And then you worry about Von Bell at safety. That's the other big concern. And Marcus Williams. I mean, these guys were inconsistent last season. So there's a lot of concern that they need to show up. I don't think any of them are, weaknesses per se, but they have to prove that they're strengths. And that's what I worry about with the secondary. And that's why it's so important for them to find a second pass rusher. Because if you leave a lot of those guys out on the island and they have to make plays, the Saints didn't get a lot of interceptions last year. They were not a team that forced a lot of turnovers. And when they were at their best, the year that they won the Super Bowl, they forced turnovers and converted those into points. And that was a mediocre defense. People forget that defense was a middle-of-the-pack defense, but they forced a lot of turnovers in that secondary because you had
Lattimore had 4 interceptions last year.
Yeah, but you had, the name that we can't really say, Darren Sharper. But, a lot of picks there.
I just picked up a felony charge now when you just said it.
Stop it.
But, those guys created turnovers, and the Saints didn't really do that last year, and I think that they need that from that secondary this year. They're going to need extra possessions. Every team does. There's going to be games when the offense ain't rolling, and you need that extra possession or two, and it usually comes from your secondary. And I worry about their ability to create turnovers because they do get lost in space sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a copycat league. If the Saints were to copy what the Cowboys have done to them the last couple of times that they played them, give Eli Apple help over the top where everything has to happen in front of you rather than behind you. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a you can't guard him, Eli, which it really is. But give him help over the top. Put Lattimore on D-Hop until Lattimore can't guard D-Hop. But give Apple the help and make Deshaun Watson and that offense have to be meticulous enough to go on a 12, 13, 14 play drive.
Can they do that without a running game?
I don't think they can. And that's why I said if you give Apple over the top on Fuller, as if Fuller is Hopkins, and let Lattimore hold Hopkins by himself, now you put the Texans in something where we got to be efficient. We got to do this consistently, 11, 12 plays, And I don't think that offense is ready to do that just yet. The Cowboys, they stayed consistent with that. We're not going to let you beat us over the top defense. Yeah. You're going to have to do this all the way down the field. And sure enough, the Saints blinked and the Cowboys beat them. If it's a copycat league, that's what I go with initially until I got to adjust it to something else.
You look at the teams that the Saints struggled against. I mean, when they play against the Rams, what do the Rams have? They have a great front seven, and they were able to get pressure without blitzing. That's what you really have to do. And then on the other side of the ball, the Texans may have to figure out ways to generate rushing type plays without running the football. You're going to have to swing Duke Johnson out. You're going to have to throw screen passes to get those 4 to 5 yards just to keep something going. Because on first down, you cannot get 2 yards on first down against the Saints. You can't do that and be in 2nd and 8, 3rd and 6. Yeah. Those positions are not where they can be and allow the Saints to bring those rushes up.
That's where Tim Kelly and Yates have to show that they're different from O'Brien, because he does not have that kind of patience, nor does he have that kind of creativity. I'm going to bring up a name and everybody's going to think, no big deal. But the guy that used to play quarterback at Ohio State played wide receiver for the Texans. No, not Pryor.
Braxton Miller?
Braxton Miller. Yeah. One thing Braxton still has, even though he blew his shoulder out at Ohio State, was speed. Did we ever see any creativity, jet sweep or anything like that out of Bill O'Brien while he was there? Never. My point is, O'Brien doesn't like that kind of offense. It's almost like he likes the traditional East Coast, we're going to run the ball.
Like what you said Saban used to be like.
Exactly. So if Kelly and Yates can bring something different and O'Brien lets them, then now you've got those screens. Now you've got those other type of run options rather than just lining up and handing it to the back, in the 2-hole or the 1-hole or what have you. I don't think they've got the kind of discipline to do it. I really don't.
And that's why I'd be using Kenny Stills too. Because as good as Kenny is, and you can put him in that slot and let him do those things, man, you do a bubble screen for Kenny Stills and let him just move and do those things. Again, it doesn't have to be 10 yards. It doesn't have to be 12 yards. But if you're picking up 5 to 7 on that bubble screen, you're setting yourself up to be able to run play action on second down.
You've been looking at Bill O'Brien's playbook. He loves that. Those are did someone say screen or special teams? I heard screen special teams. It rhymes, right? Right. That's because he's like, it doesn't matter because we have a great punt cover team. Punt team is great. Our kickoff team. Our kickoff receiving team, we've been putting players on there a lot, big guys, because we know we're going to be receiving the ball a lot after scores. Anyway.
But punt returns ain't going to happen. Thomas Morstead is as good a punter as there is in this league. And then on the field goal side, Will Lutz is as good a kicker as there is in the league. So, it's going to be hard. The special teams, I think the Saints have a big advantage there.
The Texans got a good special teams, too, though. Their punter is really good, and their kicker is good as well.
Everybody on their team plays special teams. They better be good.
Hey, Deshaun. I know this isn't your thing, but we're going to need you to get out here on that's what
you put the show.
Did they bring Joe Webb back?
Joe Webb is on the injured reserve.
Okay, that's right. He
got hurt. I think he hurt his ankle at the last
Joe Webb's
preseason
still
game.
Around?
He shouldn't be, but he is.
How old is Joe?
Stop it. Y'all be nice to Joe Webb.
I like Joe, but dang.
What number is he? Number 6?
Number 5.
Oh, Joe Webb the third or the 4th?
Oh, the third.
Okay, yeah.
See, here's my thing with Joe Webb. I don't know. I think because he knew that they weren't going to play Deshaun this preseason and A.J. McCarron was hurt, the backup quarterback was hurt, and he's back now. I think Joe was like, I guess this is my time to shine. I'm Willie Beeman out here. And I was like, but you can't be Willie Beeman with 5 interceptions. You can't be Willie Beeman with 1 week you force the ball into double coverage. 1 preseason. Then the next week you like, 2 ain't good enough for me. I'm going to throw it into 3.
Practice, man. Not the games. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man.
Hey, man, listen.
If you're going to try it in practice.
He a good special teams guy, though.
And Bill O'Brien loves that,
exactly.
So there you go.
I got 2 more things for y'all, and then we're going to get up out of here. The last thing when it comes to the game. Now, AJ will tell you, I am a huge Justin Reed fan. Yeah. Second-year safety for the Houston Texans. Man, when I tell you, listen, I used to tell him after every game last year, hey, man, you're going to be Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. you're going to be Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. And I think that, he was on the path to do that, but was it Derwin James, the safety out of the Chargers?
Yeah.
Just had a better year.
James did have a really good year. That kid is going to be special.
And even though his team didn't have the record, I don't think that they finished.
The Chargers,
they finished 11-5.
They finished second in the AFC West behind the Chiefs.
But I'm a huge fan of Justin Reid, and the reason why I am a huge fan of Justin Reid is because I like players who are smart, as well as athletic, as well as physical. And when you look at Justin Reid, he has all three of those things. I mean, he went to Stanford, by God. Even with an athletic scholarship, you still just ain't finna walk in the door.
No, you have to qualify academically. They don't play with that.
Unless your mom is Felicity Huffman. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, right? I mean, if your mama was like...
Lori Loughlin.
Yeah, exactly, right?
You pay $50,000 to get you into school.
Right? I mean,
Not guilty.
They can, superimpose your face or Photoshop your face on another athlete's body to make them look like you and then get you in on an athletic scholarship by paying under the table. Then you can get into Stanford. That's neither here nor there. But I like the fact that Justin Reid is very smart. I like the fact that he's very athletic. He has been watching film, like I said earlier on your show, Hard in the Paint. He has been watching film on NFL quarterbacks and wide receivers since he was in college. And he said, he even came out and said, Drew Brees is one of the people that I watch because he's an all-time great. Drew Brees' biggest thing is looking you off.
Yep.
His biggest thing is manipulating. I put it like this. People like to say Tom Brady, but there's nobody in the game right now and
who looks off a receiver.
Exactly. Who looks off, who will move, who can literally move the safety.
Right.
With just his eyes.
Right. Exactly. He's like, I know I'm going here. Yeah. I know from the jump. Right. This is my first option. But I'm going to make you think I'm coming over here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, with Justin Reid, one of his strong points is he'll stop and he's watching. He's watching everything around him, and he's watching you. So he's like, if you move here, he's like, nah, because I've watched enough film to know that you ain't turned out your whole shoulders. You're not throwing over here. You here trying to move me so you can come back over here. So when Drew goes to, move his shoulders to the left, and Justin's going to be like, nah, I think he's coming back to the right. On top of that, not only with Justin Reid, they got Tayshaun Gibson, who played with Jacksonville last year, who is not a slouch himself. I think that they're on the defense side of the ball, outside of J.J. Watt, they have safety is one of their strongest positions. Do you think now with Drew Brees getting older, because I got to be careful, especially in New Orleans. You can't say too many bad things about about Drew Brees in New Orleans if you want to make it out of New Orleans, right? But
believe me, I know.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, as your agent, don't say a word.
But I will say that I think that Justin Reid has a really good chance because, and David, I'm going to let you go first, and AJ, you can follow up with this. At the end of the year, David, he wasn't good. I mean, weeks 1 through 12, he had 29, I'm talking about Drew Brees, 29 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 10 total sacks. Games 13 through 16, when they were still fighting for that number one position with the Rams, they were still fighting for that. So he was playing for something. He had 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 7 sacks. He did not look good against the Rams.
And it's been 2 years running with that. It's not just last year. The year before, he struggled down the stretch. And he didn't have great playoff games. I mean, the game against Minnesota was not a great game. The Saints didn't really do anything offensively for the first 2.5 quarters. So, then you go, last year he wasn't that great against the Rams in the NFC Championship game. Of course, the big interception in overtime, which was one of those... That was to be honest, that was the worst overtime throw that I've seen since Brett Favre's against the Eagles. You remember that one?
Yes.
When they were in Philly and it was the start of overtime and Favre just chucked it into the air and you were like, where is he throwing it? And there were 3 Eagles waiting for it, as like a punt.
Yep.
I mean, that's basically what happened against the Rams in the overtime. So he's made some poor decisions in late in the season, and I think part of it too is that he gets arm fatigue. They don't change the offense as much as you see with that the Patriots do for Tom Brady. Like, when was the last time you saw Tom Brady really chuck it? He doesn't do that anymore. I mean, his passes don't travel in the air real far because Tom ain't got that fastball anymore. And I think that they will, some of that is Sean Payton. It's just Sean Payton got to be Sean Payton. He gonna call what he calls.
Wait, is the Teddy Bridgewater era starting?
No, that ain't gonna happen.
Taysom Hill?
Taysom Hill.
No. As much as they love Taysom,
happening.
he ain't never. I mean, Taysom Hill's taking 8 snaps in games as a pro,
Yeah.
and he's 30 years old. You ain't gonna put that dude out there if you're really trying to win. I mean, that's just serious. I mean,
But they love him in
they
memory.
do.
Yeah.
They love him in a lot of places. Taysom might be he's probably the second most popular Saint behind Drew Brees, and Allen would probably be third. But that's weird that since
Is that
Taysom
something?
don't play
Is that
as a
something?
quarterback. But anyway, I got these big arguments this summer about Cordell Stewart versus Taysom Hill, and people were trying to tell me that Taysom was better than Cordell at Slash, and I'm
God,
like, no.
stop it.
Cordell wears better socks anyway, but that's neither here nor
And
there.
Cordell got some other issues, but
Allegedly.
but
Hey, slow down, Dave Chappelle.
I just say it with her. And that's about
Got
it.
something to do with them Davids.
That's crazy.
No comment.
That's crazy.
I mean, I do think that it's going to be real important how they manage what Drew Brees does this year. If he's older quarterbacks, just that's always been the formula. We saw it with Peyton Manning at the end of his career in Denver. He had that 1 year where he lit everything up, but then his arm does what it does.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Chuck, these wobbly throws through
Yeah.
the air.
His brothers followed in those same footsteps.
It just happens when you're older, and you got to manage it. If he's throwing 25 passes a game, I'm happy. If he's throwing 35 plus, it's going to be a longer season for the Saints. I think that they're an 11-win team this year. I mean, it's hard to go 13-3 back-to-back season, especially when you get in the first place schedule. And I don't care that everybody in the NFC South lost yesterday. That stuff don't matter. Panthers versus Rams,
Yeah.
they were supposed to lose to the Rams. That's supposed to happen. The Falcons, they're the Falcons. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And I think the Buccaneers will be better as they go along this season because I believe in a guy like Bruce Arians. I'm just not a big Jameis Winston guy.
Which, by the way, side note, this is my petty
Your
side
thing.
coming out again. I feel like if Jameis Winston wants to be successful, he retires from the NFL right now and declares himself available for the XFL.
If Jameis Winston first, he need to buy some contact lenses and some glasses. Because I'm tired of seeing brother squint on the sideline. But Jameis turns the ball over like that's his job.
But you know what? That might seem like a minor thing. I noticed that too, and the fact that if we in two different places notice that too, there's so many guys, Tiger Woods, since we're talking about people, who when he got an adjustment in his vision, his game ticked back up as opposed to plateauing out or going down. If Jameis Winston doesn't have the people around him to say, James, let's check that out, he's going to be what we keep seeing. But, man, when you are invested in your craft, you got to invest in the tools of your craft as well. Quarterbacks got to have good eyes. And I noticed that. It's like, why is he always squinting?
It's been since Florida State, and it's like, just, man, you can afford LASIK. It's
Exactly.
there for you, bro.
And-
Or at
but-
least get some contacts.
But think about it, though.
XFL.
Stop that.
XFL. What? And then, look, Bruce can bring in...
AAF.
Hold on, Bruce.
AAF.
Bruce can bring in the person who he wants to bring in anyway. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ain't he like the Magic Man?
Ryan Fitzpatrick is over.
Conor McGregor.
They'll get him.
Conor McGregor.
They'll get him.
Conor McGregor.
All right, look, AJ.
Bruce wearing that Kangol, he might be the one to bring Cat back. If you don't...
I hope.
I half expect to see Bruce on the sidelines with a Newport and a crown and coat.
And listen, hold on.
Hold on, I got caught in this offense.
And he fought the NFL in order to be able to wear that Kangol.
Yup.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
listen, quickly because I know we got to get up out of here. AJ,
Yeah.
your prediction. What's the score tonight?
I'm still going with the Saints by double digits. I've said 30-17, 31-17. I'm going to stay right there.
David?
38-28. I think it's a shootout earlier than the Saints pull away.
I got 24-17, the Saints over the Texans. And I want to do a little rapid fire before we get out of here.
All right.
And it doesn't matter. I mean, who answers? The Browns' final record would be what?
8-8.
8-8.
I say 10-6.
I don't think so. I think that division we just saw.
They won't win the division.
Baltimore is better than you think. You know, I think Cleveland showed. I think Cincinnati showed better than I thought they would.
But they're still Cincinnati.
They're still Cincinnati,
Yeah,
but they showed that they will compete.
Yeah.
And I think that Pittsburgh's going to be better than they were. I don't think Pittsburgh is great by any stretch of the imagination.
That's who I think it'll be 8-8.
But I'm real. I'm not sold on this team because I think they think they've arrived already. And if you think you've arrived before you prove something in this league, you're gonna get embarrassed on a lot of Sundays.
Yeah,
they're gonna hit a stretch on where they're gonna win a lot of games.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not a huge Baker Mayfield fan as far as his attitude is concerned. I like his bravado and his machismo, but I just think that, anytime you got a Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr., it's really, hey, bubble screen, get the ball in Odell's hand, he'll make it happen. So I say 10-6, y'all say 8-8. Melvin Gordon plays this year, yes or no?
No.
I say yes.
With the Chargers or with someone else?
I think he's going to play with the Chargers. I think seeing old boy ball out yesterday a little bit, yeah, I think he's going to find a way back on that field this year in the next couple of weeks.
Unless it's a trade, I don't see him playing this shit just because running backs are figuring out that if we're going to be on this limited time, if everybody's going to say you got 8 years, then how much is your body worth? And if you're Melvin Gordon, you're looking and saying, I'm not getting paid what it takes for me to take these hits, then you're going to wait and see if somebody's going to give you the money that you need. That's where I would be at this point.
Yeah, that's where I would be.
And I thought Bavani Jones made a great point last week when he said the running backs got to get their own union within the players' union. Because if the league is going to try to do this to them, and it's a concerted effort to devalue their position.
It is.
If you're going to do this, then we need our own set of rules. You're going to have to figure out a way to pay us. Because like with Zeke Elliott, you're the 4th pick in the draft. And you got to beg for your money when they built that whole team around you.
Right.
When they got that offensive line, Dak had a great game yesterday. But you think you're going to get 16 great games out of Dak without Zeke behind him? If that had been the case? And that's not going to happen. If Amari Cooper going to get one-on-one, he knows what that's like with the Raiders.
Yeah.
To not have a guy on the other side and not have a running game. So if you're gonna draft a guy 4, you gotta pay him. And you look at Alvin Kamara, he's getting $860,000 this year.
Yeah.
And he's looking around. You telling me I think he's got another 2 years on his deal, and the Saints don't love to talk to players before their deal's up. But if you have a Kamara, you making $860,000 and you know you're the most important weapon on that offense.
Right.
That ain't enough money for you to take them licks.
Hold on, AJ. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Sticking right there. Well, go ahead and get your point out.
I was going to say the same thing. Le'Veon Bell is a different guy. Ezekiel Elliott is a different guy. I don't know if Melvin Gordon has that different guy to hold out or to force a trade or something like that. I really think he takes some form of the last offer that the Chargers offered him, and he gets back on the field. But I don't know if he has that personality to hold out like a Bell or an Elliott, to me.
Sticking right there in California, AJ. Todd Gurley retires early.
I don't know, man.
He does not look the same.
Them legs, he's had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to Georgia.
Yeah.
Man, you talking about 2 torn ACLs when he was at Georgia.
Yeah.
And
even yesterday, he did not look good at all.
That burst is what separated Gurley from. It was a supernatural, that one cut and go. That's what made him separated.
But was that head yesterday or was that health? Because your head can say, I can't do it yet. Your health can say, yes, you can. I'm looking for week 3 or 4 to see if that burst is still not there, and then that just tells me that leg is not what it used to be.
Does McVay limit his carries this year?
He should.
To save him for the playoffs?
He should.
But who's going to get the carries?
The guy out of Texas.
But is that enough?
I can't think of his name.
Because that's what I worry about. I'm not a huge guy on golf. I'm not a big Jared Goff guy. I think he works well because of McVay, and I think they have a great trio of wide receivers in Woods and Kupp and Cooks. So you got 3 really talented receivers. But we saw in the playoffs again. What did Goff do?
I said Goff is nothing but,
he's Kirk Cousins.
People talk bad that Trent Dilfer was just a game manager to lead the Ravens to the Super Bowl in 2002. Is that 2002?
2001.
2001,
yeah.
Right, so just leading them to Malcolm Brown. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, AJ.
Yeah.
But I said, if you go back and you look, not even so in the playoffs, even including the Super Bowl, I think he had 1 touchdown and 2 or 3 interceptions through all 3 games. Right, and I'm talking about Jared Goff, quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams.
You're talking about the worst offensive Super Bowl you've ever seen in your life.
Look at the last 7 games of the season. You've seen it coming. You've seen him, starting to go downhill and starting to regress.
Kupp got hurt, that started it.
Yep.
And then when Gurley and they had to split the time between him and C.J. Anderson, that was those last 3 or 4 games of the regular season and into the playoffs, he just wasn't.
And you found out that was in his head. You found out McVay was in his head. So, got one more. AB last the entire season with the Pats, yes or no?
Hell yes, he lasts.
I'm in agreement with that 100%.
They didn't have to have a conversation with him when he came in the building. People keep saying Bill Belichick gave him the rules. He knows. He's been around the Patriots enough. Yeah. He knows the culture.
He knew what he's getting into.
He knows the culture.
He knew what he wanted
and
to
he
get
got people to talk to him who say, man, this is what it's like over here.
Yeah.
And people can say, well, they don't treat anybody special in New England. Sure they don't. But you come there to win. That's what you come there to do.
Right.
And Tom Brady ain't going to be acting a fool with AB. I guarantee you that.
Yeah. That's what I said earlier when we were coming. When did AB start having problems in Pittsburgh?
You said that when Roethlisberger called him out.
Called him out about the video thing. And after that, it was, I got to get out of here. Because there was a whole lot going on. Because instead of management backing AB and the other players up, what did he say? He's like the father in this 53-man, 52-man locker room. Guys don't want to hear that. Guys, especially when you're trying to feed your family. I know they're not starving. He didn't want to go to L.A. What they do? They traded him there. They literally said, we're not going to send you to New England for any reason whatsoever. What AB said? I'll get there my way.
And he got there his way.
And he got there his way.
Raiders, 4-12?
Or less.
Man, I don't like anything about the Raiders.
I don't either.
I don't like anything
Toxic
about
culture?
Yes.
I think bringing Gruden back, Gruden is one of those guys. Again, you talk about coaches treating players like children. This whole knock on wood thing, if you hear me, what is that? What is that? That means nothing. Because I can do that all day. I don't mean I'm paying attention to you. I just listen to you say, I don't even have to listen to you say knock on wood. I hear the dude next to me. Okay, I heard you.
In the words of Terry Bradshaw, I can't believe I'm quoting him. He's a hype man. That's all he is. Gruden is a hype man.
What did he do? He took one Raiders team to an NFC championship game. I mean, an AFC championship game where they lost on the tuck rule. Okay. Then he goes to Tampa, takes over Tony Dungy's team, wins the
Super Bowl
the first year.
People, his fans, the Raiders fans, are saying that the team that he played against was his team that he built to go to the Super Bowl. And with Tampa Bay, he won the Super Bowl. He led them to the Super Bowl victory. And
that defense, you're talking about one of the great defenses of all time.
Yes.
He had nothing to do with that
whatsoever.
Those guys watched that film and they knew. The defense knew that ain't Gruden in the locker room. He ain't in there. I mean, he's not in the defensive meeting rooms with them. Those guys saw the plays and they said, "Oh,
was Rich Gannon the quarterback for them?"
Yes.
Rich Gannon.
And what did Derek Brooks say? Derek Brooks is sitting there saying, "I'm calling out everything they did."
Right.
That's not Gruden.
Right.
And then what happened after that? Gruden was trying to sell us on Joe Jurevicius as a number one receiver in the league and couldn't get a running game going with Allstott, with work done when he was still healthy. You couldn't develop a quarterback. He never did.
Jurevicius went to Penn State?
Yep. So, I mean, you didn't see anything with
Let me get a little Tulane love in here. Tony Dungy and Sean King don't have a play overturned in the middle of the next play, in the middle of the next play, and they're in that Super Bowl, and Tony Dungy wins his Super Bowl. They literally overturned a play that they were about to run the very next play on. Booth rule. Booth rule. So when I tell you John Gruden had nothing to do with what happened.
He Barry Switzer his way to a ring.
Bruh, yes. Exactly.
He Barry Switzer his way to a ring. You just go along for the ride, and you take it. And because he's out there in the face, and
man.
Everybody, because Dungy didn't do none of that.
Because he was under 500 since the Super Bowl.
Well, and that's why,
and not close to 500,
and not close to. That's why I tweeted out, what do you do when your head coach and your GM are the proverbial cancers in the locker room? Folks thought I was talking about Bill O'Brien. I'm not. I'm talking about John Gruden. I'm talking about Mike Mayock.
How do you give a coach 10 years, $100 million in any sport? In any sport.
Who's been out of the coaching realm
for more than a decade.
10 years.
So how do you give there's not a single coach in the league outside of Bill Belichick that you're going to drop that money on and say you got 10 years?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to pay that money.
Exactly.
And you're going to fire him. He will be fired by the time you get to year 4.
But you know what? You touch on a bigger issue. Al Davis never believed in his own son. That's why Mark Davis ran, of all people, Hugh Jackson out of Oakland the day after his dad died.
And Hugh Jackson had a solid year. That 1 year they went 9-7, and then they fired Hugh Jackson.
Hugh Jackson made the statement, I'm going to be more involved with the running of this organization, and he looked over at Al's wife. And sure enough, Mark, from that moment, well, it actually had started before that, hated the man who his dad respected and trusted.
And if you can judge a man by his haircut.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe Hugh said something about his haircut.
But the little Dutch boy.
And here's the thing, too. Here's the thing, too. You could tell that Mark Davis didn't know what he was doing because if not for Jerry Jones, they don't move to Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
If Jerry doesn't step in and
to
say,
move to San Antonio.
Yeah, if Jerry doesn't step in and say, this is going to be good for the league, this is what we're going to do, and everybody, no matter how many people, how many owners hate Jerry Jones, they respect him for the fact that he knows how to make money.
Absolutely.
He knows how to make money. Yeah.
You go in debt to buy an organization for $140 million, you turn them into a $6 billion organization, $5 or $6 billion, and so that's how I look at it. And also getting back to the whole AB and Oakland Raiders, and we've all talked about this. I know that AB has mental health. I can't diagnose him, but he just shows all the symptoms and the signs. As a person who has them, I see as well. And what I feel like John Gruden did was he played Mike Mayock to go after Antonio Brown so he wouldn't look like the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Because he's like, hey, I brought you here, bro. Coach. You were on the NFL Network. I brought you here.
Right.
So you're going to do what I say, no matter what. I'm like the GM.
Yeah, because who has the better job security? 10 for over 100 or whatever Mayock's deal? It ain't the same.
Right.
Exactly. So guess what happens? So now, so I want to now, AB is giving us this friction. I want out of this contract. I want out of this guaranteed money. Hey, I know how to do this. And plus, I look back and I see, because I've seen it in the military, when the chain of command wants to get somebody out and they're on the cusp of getting them out of there, even if the soldier's responsible for putting himself in those situations, they're like, oh, we know how to push your buttons. All right, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're going to take his time away from his family. Mm-hmm. We're going to make him do extra duty. We're going to send him out to the field for 29 days. We don't have to pay him. We're going to send him out there for 30 days. On the 31st day is when we have to pay him family separation leave. So on the 30th day, we'll bring him home, let him stay here for a day, and then we'll send him back out until he gets upset and mad and does something, and then we can kick him out. So Antonio Brown, yes, put himself in a lot of bad situations. I'm not taking that away from him. But they also knew how to push, how to press his buttons. And then I tell people this. They say, well, you can't blame Gruden for this because, it was all AB fault. Then what did Khalil Mack do?
Right.
What did Amari Cooper do?
Right.
Both of them.
What's Derek Carr doing?
Yeah. And what I mean by, neither one of those guys who don't play for the Raiders anymore, they didn't do anything.
Right.
Well, they didn't have the money to pay. Okay, I give you Khalil Mack. But Amari Cooper could have waited.
Right.
The same amount of money that you promised AB.
You're talking 2 years for Amari Cooper.
Exactly.
And what did he do? Have we ever heard anything about Amari Cooper?
He ain't said nothing in Dallas about asking for his extension.
No. And we never heard him being a bad locker room guy in Oakland. Not. And so people came back and say, well, he had a lot of drops. It was performance, the reason why they got him out of it. That's because he's playing with Derek Carr.
Exactly.
You can't give him you can't get him 115 receiving yards 1 week and then turn around and he only has 20 the next. You target him 10 to 12 times 1 week, and then the next week you target him 5. That has a lot to do with the fact that David Carr is a subpar quarterback. I said Derek.
They both were.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. But Derek Carr is a subpar quarterback, and when you look at it, it's like the defense, like, oh, okay, so last week he had this. We're gonna take Amari away. We're gonna make David adjust, and he can't adjust. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're taking away my first read. I don't know what else to do. I'm dumbfounded.
Teams have handled this better. And we've seen it with veterans plenty of times where guys are like, look, I'm a vet. I really don't want to do this stuff. Can I not? Yeah. Because even the great Barry Sanders, every other year, Barry would be like, I'm holding out. He wasn't asking for no money, really. Barry just didn't want to come into practice and get hit. He's like, I'm saving myself for them 16. I don't, all these dudes, I don't need you to hit me now. You know what I'm saying? You're not hitting me today. Yep. So this is not new. What Antonio Brown was. You knew, these are 3 things you know about Antonio Brown. Ain't nobody run better routes than Antonio Brown in this league. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. He doesn't get injured. We know that.
Yep. Works out very well.
So there's not a route in a tree that you're going to put out there that he's going to be confused by. So why is it so necessary then to publicly talk about all these things?
That's my
instead
point.
of coming in the house and saying, look, AB, I get it, man. Your feet hurting you. But even then, he was still out there running. You saw him on Hard Knocks. He out there running. They said, maybe you're going to keep splitting that skin. He said, I got to work. The man wanted to work. It was clear he wanted to work. But he didn't want to put up with his extra stuff.
Yep.
And and like you said, I think he does have somebody needs to talk to him about something. He got stuff he needs to get off his chest.
He got to want it.
Yeah, he's got to want that part.
That help.
And I know
But you take the field part,
Yep.
on the stuff on the field, that man is going to come to work. He wants to compete more than anything, and he always has something to prove. The dude wants to prove that he's the greatest receiver playing right now.
Let me say this though. I all of this is true. This is why I'm a little disappointed in one man, Tony Dungy. I'm very disappointed in Tony Dungy because Tony put that message out about the whole team sport thing. I got that. AB, being a little self-focused, I get that. But to declare that this man is going to be a failure in the long run, the Tony Dungys of the world can't talk about these guys like that.
Yeah.
We got too many other Mike Mayock's, we got too many other John Grudens, we got too many other Teddy Bruschi's, we got too many other those guys. Tony Dungy cannot declare a guy's going to be a failure and you've not done one thing to help it.
And I'll say this to wrap on my part. The biggest problem I have with all this is that the league has created this by this structure in which you have given the quarterback all the power.
Yep.
And by doing that, you force the other players at skill positions in particular to fight for every dollar they can get,
Yes.
every stat
Any
they
means
can
necessary.
get. It ain't like that in the NBA. It ain't like that in the MLB.
Right.
But in pro football, the other guys on skill positions on offense
Yeah.
are begging for their money
Right.
because of that cap, and that you're giving 25 to 30 million to your quarterback, and it's $120 million cap.
Which is what you remember now, the general manager the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who said that Ben is the dad and everybody else is the kid, said that there's only one position that we'll give guaranteed money to, and that's the quarterback. Ben is the only one that's going to get his money. Everybody else is all right, we got to get up out of here. Yes or no? Dolphins are tanking.
Yes.
Absolutely tanking.
Heck
Everybody
yeah.
wants to leave.
Yeah.
Them dudes don't want to get hurt.
Heck yeah.
And they know.
Yeah.
You put
Yeah.
that group of players, the guys who are actually good, are going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And that's why they want out.
They put Josh Rosen in. They take it.
And the last one. By the end of the season, Jadeveon Clowney will be
Just fine.
Yeah.
all
Just
pro.
fine.
Pro
I
Bowl?
don't know about
I
that.
don't know about all pro, but definitely pro
He's
bowl.
going to be just fine.
Yeah, he's gonna be just fine.
Just fine.
Just fine.
However that works, whatever that means, he ain't going to be no problem.
I mean, doggone, he had a sack yesterday. A sack, a whole sack. He gonna be just fine.
He's going to be just fine in Seattle.
He happy.
David, once again, tell us where we can find you at.
On Twitter, at DM Grubb, GRUBB, at HITP_W_DG, and at my website, HITPwithdg.com.
And your show is?
Hard in the Paint with David Grubb, 8 to 10 a.m. on Sports 1280. Also on the iHeartRadio app. You can find me there and my podcast.
AJ Jones.
At Lunchbreak KYOK on Twitter. At The Lunchbreak KYOK on Facebook. And, AM 1140 and the all-new 92.3 FM, or stream us live at kyokradio.org from 12 to 2, Monday through Friday.
And you always know where you can find Big Sarge at. Big Sarge Sports with a Z on Twitter and Instagram, and BigSargeSports.com. Make sure you can go and you can listen to the podcast and past podcasts there. You can also read my articles, and I'm super petty, so ain't no telling what I'm going to put up there. So
Me and David Grubb just trademarked Buzzed and Petty.
nah.
So let us know when you want to buy it.
Or
rent it.
Oh, Mark Cuban. Like I heard it, I wanted it. Well, once again, you've been tuning into Sports Talk with Big Sarge Podcast. Make sure that you share. And I appreciate you guys for coming on. And before I leave, last thing, hold on, let me make sure how much time we got. Before I leave up out of here, it ain't real. I wasn't really checking the time. I just want to make sure that I could press pause after I say, H-Town, stand up. I'm out.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the app or Apple Podcasts.
Big Sarge Sports, shout out, world's oldest millennial.